So yeah, thank you very much for having me here today. Good if I start. I'm going to talk about my art practice. So the artistic method that I call the Unrepeating Repeat is a practice-based framework developed through the making, which investigates how subtle variations within repetition can expand algorithmic understanding by fostering embodied shifts in perception and material translation. So rooted in a lifelong love of pattern and a curiosity for its cultural, aesthetics, and procedural dimensions, my work aligns with the festival's celebration of human engagement with pattern as a generative, imaginative force. So through a series of artworks developed over 3 decades of studio practice and refined recently through doctoral inquiry, the Unrepeating Repeat operates as part of a trio of artistic positions. So sitting alongside Ludwig Wittgenstein's aspect seeing and Roman Jakobson's intersemiotic translation. So rooted in traditions of textiles, drawing, and text, often realized through site-specific installations, the Unrepeating Repeat offers a way of working with pattern that embraces variations as intrinsic and purposeful. It extends a glitch as something embedded in both heritage and contemporary context, and as a system shaped by curiosity, materiality, and attention. So here, repetition and pattern are not a tool for replication, but a structure to enable re-seeing. The Unrepeating Repeat emerges as both a practical and philosophical approach to making. So thinkers like Deleuze, Derrida, Kierkegaard, they set the foundation, reminding us that repetition is never simply the same again. I draw on this as a backdrop, but here my focus is on how these ideas play out through material practice and the ways we perceive. At the core of my work is the recognition that repetition is never identical when enacted through material processes, especially those involving the hand, the body, and time. This is not a flaw or imperfection, but rather a generative and encoded condition. Small shifts, deviations, or slippages within a repeated structure are what allow a viewer to see the other within, to see anew. So rather than static recurrence, the Unrepeating Repeat enacts a dynamic cycle in which each iteration invites fresh engagement, perception, and meaning. It is a pattern logic of subtle difference, where variation is embedded within the system. This difference is not random, but procedural, guided by rules or structures of the Unrepeating Repeat that are inherently human, intuitive, and material responsive. The work invites us to look again, to re-see, through embodied engagement with subtle variation. In this way, the Unrepeating Repeat unsettles conventional repetition and opens the possibility for deeper exploration. By creating a framework in which subtle variations prompt the viewer to reconsider and re-see. This approach becomes an invitation to encounter each repeat or work anew, ultimately encountering embodied, sustained engagement that enables shifts in perception and perspective. The performative and involving nature of these works cultivates an active relationship with the viewer, so one that is rooted in the nuances of handmade repetition and the tactile sensibilities of textile processes. So therefore, the Unrepeating Repeat is a mechanism for activating aspect seeing, embedding variation within repetition to allow the potential for new insight. It is important to understand that experiencing the creative works is not about knowing what is there, but about the act of discovery, the embodied moment when the viewer understands there's more to be seen. So drawn from philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein and expanded through contemporary artist and theorist Tina Melzer, aspect seeing refers to the moment in which a viewer perceives an object, an image, a situation in a new light or anew. Not because the thing itself has changed at all, but because their perception of it has shifted. So this is seen in the familiar experience of the duck-rabbit illusion, in which one visual figure yields two mutually intertangled but exclusive images, oscillating in and out of view. So my artistic works aim to cultivate this perceptual condition, not by deceiving the eye, but by embedding layered structures within the work that invite multiple readings. So found through the unrepeat and associated through, accessed through slowness, attention, and close looking, the viewer begins to notice what is hidden in plain sight. An apparent stitch is a drawn line. A letter or a line is a letter, and a letter forms a word. This perceptual activation is not limited to the pattern, but also occurs across semiotic modes. So a function articulated through intersemiotic translation. Based on Roman Jakobson's notion of transmutation across sign systems, intersemiotic translation in my artistic research operates as a cross-material strategy that translates meaning from textile processes into drawing and text, or writing as drawing. These acts of translation are not neutral transferences, but transformative transpositions, where the change in medium also prompts a change in meaning, emphasis, or sensory engagement. A stitched pattern may become a drawn line, which in turn becomes a word. Each shift offers a new lens through which to understand the original source. Translation here is not about fidelity, but about resonance and relational meaning. The repeated translation across media acts as another form of the unrepeating repeat, where each instance is derived from the same source, but altered by its context, material, and form. Interweaving the unrepeating repeat aspect scene, which subtle variations interweaving the unrepeating repeat aspect scene and intersemiotic translation together forms an interdependent system that structures the creative practice. The unrepeating repeat directly enables aspect scene by creating the conditions for shifts in perception, while intersemiotic translation enhances the experience by allowing the viewer to engage with the work through shifting media. Rather than being isolated elements, they operate as overlapping lenses through which both artist and viewer navigate the work. So each element informs and deepens the other. So unrepeating repeats foster an attentive exploration. Aspect scene activates shifts in its perception and deeper understanding. And intersemiotic translation expands meaning across modes. So shifting from looking to seeing. The artworks themselves are the starting points from which these ideas emerge, though they are not didactic or illustrative. Instead, they offer environments in which these dynamics can unfold materially and experientially. What may at first be decorative, familiar, or even predictable is gradually revealed as layered, contingent, and unexpected. The viewer's experience of and with the work is central. They are invited into a process of noticing, of re-seeing, of slowing down, and moving closer. This ethos extends beyond the visual into the temporal, spatial, and tactile dimensions of the work, foregrounding not only what is seen, but how it is seen, and how that seeing or perceiving might change. In this way, the artwork enacts an ethics of attention, a belief that through the careful encounter with repeated, yet varying forms, a deeper perception might emerge. So a pattern that is pluralistic, iterative, variant, and open-ended raises questions about how we come to understand repetition, not just in visual or material terms, but in how it can shape our way of knowing and making sense of things. The artwork invites a rethinking of repetition as a way of perceiving and enabling embodied understanding, where meaning is continually unfolding through each encounter. By resisting sameness and insisting on variation within repeated structures, the unrepeating repeat challenges notions of standardization and closure that can undermine both artistic and social systems. Instead, it promotes a model of knowing and making that embeds multiple perspective and remains open to further discovery. The repeated forms remained in motion, always inviting another look, another perspective. So, in conclusion, my work articulates a distinctive mode for artistic practice, grounded in the unrepeating repeat as a structural and conceptual device. Interwoven with aspect seeing and intersemiotic translation, the method offers a dynamic, materially responsive approach to pattern, one that engages algorithmic thinking not through mechanized precision, but through iterative, intuitive procedures shaped by hand, context, and sight. Rather than fixed decorative patterns, the creative works function as evolving invitation, asking the viewer not only to look, but to look again. Repetition becomes the engine of variation, and through this process, perceptual, material, and cultural shifts are made possible. The artworks demonstrate how pattern created through textile logic and vernacular algorithms operate across visual and linguistic modes, generating meaning through subtle divergence rather than exactness. So a postscript, an invitation to see. So my creative work embodies a deliberate invitation to slow down, to look carefully, to remain curious. The process of making mirrors this invitation through the slow meditative acts of translating textile processes, drawing words as lines, intertwining images and text, and creating space for further understanding and perceptual shifts. So labor and time were devoted to engaging with historical starting points, transforming them into contemporary artworks. The following excerpt from a poetic translation of Katsushika Hokisa's painting serves as a meaningful parallel for understanding or experiencing my own work. So Roger Keyes, a scholar of Japanese art history, he crafted this poetic fragment from Hokisa's painting. Hokisa says, look carefully. He says, pay attention, notice. He says, keep looking, stay curious. He says, there is no end to seeing. Much like this poetic understanding, my work asks viewers to engage deeply and to attend closely to the interplay between perspectives, materials, and forms. My creative work is purposely quiet and subtle, encouraging a contemplative engagement with their nuanced elements. So through slow looking, encouraged by the unrepeating repeat, audiences are invited to experience the artworks as spaces of curiosity and discovery. The artworks and its affect is an invitation for you to engage in an ongoing dialogue between seeing, understanding, and finding new possibilities within the familiar. So my final invitation for you is, look again, shift your perspective, see differently. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Danica, for this presentation. And now we have time for questions, ideas. Yes.
Hi. I was wondering how, if you are working around what it could be taken as a contradiction when you present your exploration as pluralistic and the idea to open a sort of free on ourselves for certain, let's say, parameters. Yet most of the authors that you referred to, if I understood correctly, come from continental philosophy and are very much situated within the, it's a European tradition, and I was wondering if that's something that you're doing intentionally because of your own situatedness, or how do you deal with this, what now could be seen as a contradiction?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's not that it's a specifically intentional act. It's more of when I began really looking at repetition and unrepeating repeat, things that don't repeat, that there was this, quite foundational groundwork that I didn't want to, I guess, ignore or dismiss. And so it's more of a this is what I was saying, it's just a tiny backdrop or a touching point, that an understanding that there is, of course, lots of discourse around repeats that are not about being exact, and not ignore that rather than them being the main thing that I'm focusing on. Yeah.
Okay, maybe there and then like this. Maybe yes, like you, and then you.
One thing I really loved was the way the visuals were shifting as you're inviting us to see differently. We're seeing differently, and now my question really is: to what extent is that the art as well? Because that's just sort of another layer, is it? Or is that just a necessary communication for this sort of format? Or if I went to see your art in a gallery, would you have something like this happening in the gallery as well to encourage this?
Yeah, I wouldn't have that in the gallery as such. It's really hard to show my work because it is about actually physical movement with it. It isn't about here's a thing to just aesthetically take in. So there's this temporal dimension, there's a slowness, you have to be curious, you have to walk up to it, and that's when it begins to unfold. And so, I mean, there's kind of two things to really address with what you asked. So it's been a struggle for 30 years of how do I show this? So this is a mode that I've come to try to unfold that a little bit more. And another aspect of it is, I guess, when I do presentation, there might be I guess, a sliding scale of performativity. And I do formal talks that are highly performative in terms of sound and visuals that enact it. And I suppose it's my real interest within any mode of communication, whether it's highly academic or whether it's you're in the gallery just with the work, of how it performs the act of what you're talking about. So I suppose that's why there was that slow process of reveal at the beginning. And actually I had to really shorten it much longer than I would have, because usually it's about 5 to 10 minutes before you actually get to something. But when you only have 15 minutes, it's well.
It really works. It draws you in, but it makes the words have more meaning. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to give some feedback. As an artist, you took me into a very interesting journey, and suddenly you triggered me to think that we are not living things, but rather living art. And as you were describing the different ways of looking at patterns, at images, I sort of start doing the exercise to myself, and then I understood that we are also the product, or we are the ones that create our own patterns, our own algorithms, the good, the bad, the virtues, the vices, the routines that we have. And then at the very end, what you were kind of walk us through the technique of being able to see from different angles, or from, let's say, from a distance, then it was very beautiful to me to come up to the conclusion that we need time to think. We need time to see, time to reflect, time to be curious, And indeed, the silence is something that actually, if you become quiet and then you look at this image from the distance, which is a reflection of yourself, you start to hear the music that your own algorithms are creating. So, it was a very nice
Thank you.
reflection that you made me went through.
Thank you very much for that feedback. It's really great to hear. I have lots of thoughts from it. But I know there's another question here. Thank you.
Right, yeah, thanks. It was really good. I liked the work a lot. What's the role of repetition here? You're saying it's the unrepeated repeat, and a lot of this story, or a lot of the narrative, is the emphasis on the repeatability of it. And then it's that, because you start looking further in, and you'll see different details, or you'll start now. What would it be like, I guess, if you made this that was just non-repeat without any repetition at all?
Yeah.
What would be different, or what would be the what is the apparent repeatedness of pattern doing for you in the work and in the discourse?
Yeah, multiple things, but I think specifically in what I was kind of focusing on here today. It is the unrepeating repeat, and those two things sit together. It isn't the unrepeat. The repetition is the familiarity, and it's also connected to the source material. So all the works, and this is a whole nother paper, but elsewhere, is from all of these works, particularly, are from historical textile objects, and they're purposefully connected to senses of the familiar. And I am aware as well, kind of addressing the first questions about, they're very, white, Western, but it's because of autobiographical reasons that kind of comes in. And so the repetition is really part of that, of our familiarity of the everyday, of the domestic, of what we encounter all the time, of what we don't look at, And then through that is where you can then slip in and hide the unexpected, so that there might be moments where people come in and see the work and they think they know what they're going to see. And because they think they know what they're going to see, then if they give the time, if they give the slowness, if they are curious, or sometimes it's just by chance, they see something and they're like, oh, fucking hell, that's not, that's not what I thought it was. There's words, or that's not stitch, or it's not, and it's through that glitch, it's through that unexpected within something that is so familiar that it is ignored, that the shift happens, the embodied moment of understanding. And so it's purposefully part of enabling aspect seeing. So that's what the repetition does. It sort of seduces you in, you know what you think you're looking at, and then through that, the glitches, the moments of unrepeat can pop through, come out, and enable you to have this experience of embodied shifting. And it's so important that it's like, for me, and this is what I got I've just recently finished my doctoral, and so I was super excited. I was like, that's what I've been doing all these years. It's like it's about the embodied moment when somebody realizes there's something else. And then I suppose I am also interested in how that embodied moment might be taken away, perhaps, and applied elsewhere. And maybe, perhaps this is arrogance, I don't know, but maybe I would hope, or I would like to think, that it plants a tiny, tiny seed for people to just question what they accept, and to not accept it, and to look deeper, and to look beyond what is just there all the time. Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, thank you.
I think we should move to the next presentation. But thank you again. Thank you very much.